Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jay.
And my name's Tujin.
And I recently reviewed the Rel T5i subwoofer, which I found to be a very musical subwoofer due to its high level connection. But what if you want something a little bit more beefier? Well, in this case,
Rel makes some home theater subwoofers, and today we have the HT1003s in for review.
but this one doesn't have the high level connection that the Rel T5i did. So let's find out if it's also musical enough for musical purposes while being beefy enough and having enough output for.
Home theater.
And make sure you're subscribed
And ring that bell.
so that you don't miss anything. And let's get to it.
So the actual woofer, the 10-inch woofer, is made out of a carbon glass material, and it's known for higher SPL levels, being able to take quite a beating, hence the really hefty surround on this woofer. And, you know, from experience, it works.
So I actually disassembled the woofer and the cabinet and measured them separately. And I found that the cabinet is 15.6 pounds and the woofer is 8.2 pounds, which means that the woofer takes a large chunk of the weight of the entire subwoofer. And the amplifier in the back, the Class D amplifier, actually is about 3 pounds. So what that really tells me is that the woofer is really heavy and hefty, and just like you mentioned, it is able to take on a beating. And for most subwoofers, it makes sense that the cabinet should be about twice the weight of the woofer itself. It's not a straight up rule, but it's good to have that kind of basis. And also the cabinet inside has really nice bracing, like really hefty bracing. And the cabinet is 1-inch thick MDF material, which is nothing special, but it is, again, have really good bracing and everything is well done design for $440. It is done to every aspect. No, I would say that no corners were really cut with this subwoofer given the budget.
So the actual subwoofer is rated for, well, the amplifier is rated for 300 watts. Now note that it is Class D amplification, which is a bit different compared to other Rel subs, because I know Rel is really well known for their Class AB designs with their amplifiers. Now with the home theater, Class D being a cooler design, it does have some heat sinks on it, but yeah, it does 300 watts and it's quite efficient, so it's able to get quite loud.
So I talked to the Rel chief engineer, Andrew, and he told me that, the design behind this subwoofer is to kind of have a hybrid between a high output subwoofer for home theater, which is required for home theater, and also keep it musical at the same time, which is what Rel is known for. Now to do that, the main thing they did was to keep the woofer light as possible, which is what they always focus on, so that they have good excursion pattern, can take a beating and all that stuff. And that has to also do with the material of the woofer, like you talked about, and many of the entire design. So it's not just about the woofer, but woofer has to do a big part of the design as well. And of course, the 300 watt Class D amplification, which keeps things cool, but powerful and really good damping factor.
So from 40 to 200 hertz is the crossover built into the subwoofer. And I know for 40 hertz is something that you would normally use for big towers that already go down pretty low and you just want to adjust that lower amount. But if you're using it for home theater, I believe the THX rating is 80 hertz. Now, you would go up to 200 if you are using satellite speakers. Those are speakers that just can't play below 200 hertz. They have no bass. So you need a dedicated subwoofer for that scenario. But from my experience, I would be crossing this subwoofer around 80 to 100 hertz, depending if you're using bookshelves or you're using this as a dedicated home theater sub where you want those LFE effects from 80 hertz and 80 hertz and below to be taken care of.
But it does go down to all the way down to 24 hertz.
Yeah, it goes down to 24 hertz at -6 dB. Now, in real life practice with room gain, I've heard it go down to 20 hertz, and it's not too shabby.
I personally used this speaker with the Tecton 2-10 SET. I don't even know if I'm saying that right.
The perfect set.
The perfect set. And that speaker has bass. In my space, they have adequate bass, and they thump and all that. But when actually my good man here, Tujin, set the subwoofers up for me, and I came back home after doing some laundries, I was like, whoa, did he even set up the subwoofer? I was like, Tujin, is the subwoofer on? And he's like, yeah, it's on. I'm like,
so just to prove a point, I turned off both subs, and he's like, oh, there's the bass. It's just not as lively as it was before.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, yeah, even the top frequency, is kind of, taken care of. It's a little bit smoother and all that, but it wasn't as lively as before. I was like, wow, I didn't even know the subwoofer was playing until he actually turned it off. So that means that it's very seamless, and I really like that about this subwoofer.
Yeah, blending it was a total breeze.
Good match with the Tecton speakers. So my settings with the Tecton was actually quite funny. It was like 12.5% volume, and crossover at, actually you set it up, so
it was about 50%, 50 hertz.
About 50 hertz, and that was a seamless, like just perfect blending, and I really enjoy that with this speaker. Like 25%, that's absolutely nothing, but it was just perfect blending. And the goal of setting up speakers, just to add on with subwoofers, is to have that seamless thing going where the subwoofer is not like, it's like you don't really even know it's there. So to do that, you have to have the subwoofer at the lowest setting possible and still have that adequate bass. You don't want to be cranking up that bass. You don't want to really hear your subwoofer separately.
Well, Rel in their HT lineup has another sub. It's their HT1005, which is about 700 USD. Now that's if you want a bigger sub, but I personally find two of these in a medium-sized room to really kick ass. And in my space overall, I haven't had to crank it up past 75% when I was playing movies, and it was just absolute great output.
Yeah, in my space, never above 50.
Yeah. Okay, to be quite honest, one didn't get me where I wanted to, because I have an SVS PB13 in my home theater, and in that case, that one subwoofer fills up the room. With this, it almost gets there, but I would ideally want two. And with two subs, I would have a blast.
And you're saying that with one sub in your large ass space, it was almost there in terms of output.
Oh yeah, output.
This small subwoofer.
So I was really pushing that one small subwoofer, and I wasn't getting distortion. I was actually very impressed, and that subwoofer was moving. That surround was going in and out, and it was taking quite a beating.
So you were pushing it really hard, but you heard no distortion.
No.
Yeah, I found this subwoofer to be quite musical. Compared to the T5i though, I do have to say that for music purpose, I do like that high level connection, just in terms of tonality matching between your entire system. But this subwoofer is so seamless that if I had the choice between the two for music choice, it would be very hard. If I ever wanted to play like home theater stuff, this just has more output and more gut in my opinion. And so it'll be a tough choice, but both are very musical. And you know what? If it's just for music, I would still go with the T5i. But if I ever want to do home theater, which I do, then I would choose this subwoofer hands down.
So I used this subwoofer in particular in my home theater. It was KEF Q950s. And, when I'm watching movies, I would have it crossed over at 80 hertz. Now, when listening to music in a near field setup, I used it with KEF LS50s and Fine Audio F500s. These are both bookshelf speakers, and I had them about crossed over at 80 hertz with a high pass filter to both. So those speakers weren't playing below 80 hertz. And the experience was phenomenal nonetheless. It gave it the gut that those speakers lacked. And because I was high passing those bookshelf speakers near field, I wasn't getting any of like the port noise that you would normally get when those speakers try to play low frequencies. And because it's a near field setup, you have some constraints, but this subwoofer just performs. And being sealed near field is just absolutely great.
So when Tujin turned off one of the subwoofers when we were in here playing with the Tectons as well, I found the bass to be just phenomenal. But I did find that the dispersion and overall kind of blending to be better with two subs. And I always like two subs rather than one. And I think most people would agree with me on that. But if you have to live with one, I think I can live with one with this subwoofer because it has more output. And even if you crank it up to high levels, like you said, it's made so that it doesn't distort. And that was one of the main goals when building this subwoofer from Rel. They told me that even at high levels, they want this to play clean bass and no distortion because they're sick and tired of subwoofers distorting at high levels. It's like, why do they even have that kind of volume knob if it can't go up that high without distortion?
Exactly. It loses that grip when you start pushing it.
It's like, why do they do that? Like they want this to even at full max power to not distort, and that was their main goal. And you can take full advantage of that by having this subwoofer at maximum settings if you really wanted to, and you were really tight on budget.
So in terms of subwoofers, like in this size, I'm just going to talk about near field because that's where I really enjoyed this subwoofer. I've used an SVS SP2000. I've used a KEF Cube 10 just right off the top of my head. And when I compare it to, let's say, the SP2000, the SP2000 is great for movies. It has a lot of gut to the bass. But what I find with the SP2000 is that it lingers. It doesn't have the same control like this Rel subwoofer. And, if you're playing at high volumes, you'll find that the bass kind of takes over the experience. With this Rel, you get that gut. And, like that, it really digs in with the bass, but it still has that control and it doesn't, overtake the experience. And then when compared to like a KEF Cube 10 that I have had in the past, that subwoofer was great, like, at low volumes. But as soon as you start cranking it high, you hear distortion. It starts getting, loosey-goosey, to be honest. And it just wasn't that linear performance that you get in terms when you raise the volume like this Rel sub. I honestly... when it comes to a near field setup, I think this is one of the best subwoofers I've heard at this price point, period.
So this subwoofer, really, I have not many complaints. But again, I'm going to have to steal Tujin's idea because we talked before. I wish they had different finishes, like, kind of gloss finish or something like that. I do like the overall design, but again, I wish they had, not put so many Rel logos and signs on the Rel subwoofer. Like you look at that thing, it's from Rel.
Oh yeah,
like,
there's Rel on the feet, Rel at the top.
Every corner. Now they do have this like changing, like you can change the feet. It comes with like a feet that doesn't say Rel, but it's not the exact same feet, which I guess is like a response to, okay, if you don't want the Rel feet, change to something that doesn't say Rel. But it just doesn't seem the same, like the foot quality.
Now I'm on the opposite spectrum. If I have a Rel sub, I want to show that it's a Rel sub. I fully embrace
but
the
it's
Rel.
Like on the top, side, everywhere, every angle, this is a Rel sub. So I mean, it's not much of a complaint really, but in terms of sound characteristics, I really can't complain. They really took that, $440 budget and maximized it to like, I was really impressed. I'm really not impressed with like, subwoofers promising best of both worlds because it never is best for one thing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But this is really for $440 music, like damn. And then it's like for, home theater, like
it can do that too. Wow.
Yeah, and then like, oh, okay, all right. Yeah. But it's usually, better at one thing. But this is, I think, on even grounds for both. So yeah.
Okay, so on my case, I really don't have a lot to complain. But if I were to embrace the fact that you can use this in a near field setup, one thing that I'd like to see in the subwoofer is a high pass filter. And in stereo, that's amazing because if you have bookshelf speakers, not a lot of integrateds have that built in. And most people rely on the subwoofers to do that. So just having that high pass filter, having those RCA outs that you can go into your speaker amp to those bookshelf speakers or whatever speakers that you're using helps a lot. And that would be the only critique because I love it so much in near field. I really do.
Yeah, and the price point.
For $440, I'm I literally, before this review was even being filmed, I was thinking about it. I was even telling you that I want to get this subwoofer. So yes, just value-wise, performance, it is a no-brainer. Of course, it really depends on your situation. If you have a large room, you would probably better off with the 12-inch.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, if you want lower, deeper bass, but the aesthetics, the build, the overall quality, and when we took it apart, you know, the bracing inside and like the foam, like those are some things that some subwoofers just don't have.
Yeah.
At this price point, they really don't.
Like I said, they took really full advantage of that price point, $440. They maximized their budget to build the subwoofer.
Yeah, and I'm a fan of bang for buck. So yes, I would pay $440, no problem.
Well, I just have to say that I'm saving up money right now. $440, you know, reviewers get like reviewer discounts.
Yeah.
I'm talking about without that, if I had to pay $440 out of my pocket, 2 would be a little bit hard for me right now. But I would say that, you know, I would start with 1 and definitely consider 2. And especially because I don't just do music. If I was just doing music, I would still get the T5i. It just a little bit tonally, like just a little bit, like just,
it's like an audiophile,
like
subwoofer.
like it
where
could be just in my head, you know, but just a smidge, that kind of tonal like difference. I will still get the T5i just to, you know, reassure myself. But this subwoofer is so damn good that if I ever wanted, you know, home theater 2.1, you know, 5.1 setup, then I would get this subwoofer because it does music perfectly well. I will be perfectly happy living with this. And like I said, I'll get one and start there. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe.
And make sure to check out our Patreon because it does keep us independent and keep these videos coming.
Thank you very much, and until next time. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jay.
And my name's Tujin.
And I recently wrote...
It's a
my
low-key
fucking
brain
word.
farts.
Yeah.